All right, everyone, welcome. So today is Wednesday. I love Wednesdays because it allows me an opportunity to kind of catch up on things. So I got a lot of very good emails and feedback in regards to Monday Night Live this week. A lot of people now understand that we are going to enjoy, not overcompensate for the holidays, but we're going to be fully present. We're not going to expect that we will be perfect every single day because that's an unrealistic expectation versus a realistic approach to the holiday. We're actually going to spend a little time planning, and we're going to not be perfect, but be fully present. So extreme ownership for the holidays is that we are going to have a guilt-free approach to eating, but we are going to have an accountability approach to checking in, meaning that we're still going to check in every week because in order to stay in the plan, we've got to check in, right? And in order to stay in the plan, we've got to track our food. And in order to stay in the plan, we've got to make good decisions most of the time, right? So I kind of wanted to talk about the difference between flexibility versus clean eating. And the reason I want to talk about this is because December is going to be a month where we're probably only going to be clean eating or eating very minimally packaged and processed foods about 50 to 60% of our total daily intake will probably be from quality foods. Some days we'll have better quality, like maybe 75% high quality food, 25% food, where if you didn't say hell yes to that food and it's kind of an or a maybe, that is not going to be flexible enough to keep you on your plan. And it's also going to make it so that when you do have foods that are tempting in front of you, you have felt so restricted that you might actually slip up and eat a little bit more. Now, if that happens, that is okay. But I definitely want you to go into this with ammunition and understanding that you can have control if you don't set yourself up for failure by setting your parameters up for yourself too strictly during the week. A lot of you are finding that the weekends is when you fall off the rails because you have less structure and you kind of want to fly by the seat of your pants or live with more spontaneity. I would not allow that spontaneity during the weekends other than just for one meal. And I think that's a really good way to kind of deal with it on Saturday and Sunday. So if Sunday you want to go for brunch or you want to have brunch at home and you want to have a bigger breakfast lunch, cool, do that. If you want more flexibility at breakfast lunch, you want to have a few things that you wouldn't normally eat, cool. But for dinner then, maybe go ahead and clean up dinner and have a high quality dinner, maybe some salmon, baked potato. My hair is acting totally crazy. It's the back of my seat here. Baked potato, salad, maybe get your vegetables in at that meal, where earlier in the day for breakfast and lunch, maybe you had pancakes, eggs, bacon, some sausage for your brunch, and then you had a wrap that you really wanted to have for lunch. And now you're left with a third of your macros from fats and carbs for dinner. And you know you're going to have a nice dinner and then you're going to have a shake before bed, right? So that's the way that I would kind of approach going into the holidays, because I think we need to have more guilt-free flexibility in our brain. And we need to use that thought process for accountability when we check in. I think there's such a healthy balance there. But I want you to understand that during the holidays, there is less balance between high quality food and fun food on certain days, and that's okay. We really need to have that flexibility during the holidays. In order for us to celebrate food with our families and be completely present, that's just going to be an aspect that we have to work on in order to have a better relationship with food. And my hope and thought process for everyone, no matter who your coach is in this program, whether it's Tej, myself, Coach Sandy, or Coach Pete, all of us agree on one thing. And one thing that we agree on is that we want all of our clients to have a much better relationship with food overall. And some of you don't have an unhealthy relationship with food. You actually have a pretty healthy relationship with food. You just needed some instruction on how to eat so that you can balance your blood sugar better. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. So carbs are actually your body's preferred energy source. They are first in line for fuel utilization. So whenever you eat carbs by themselves, not with fat or protein, and especially not with fiber in it. So let me give you an example. A carb without fiber would be something like grapes or fruit juice. Okay, so like orange juice or cranberry juice or whatever your juice is, that is straight glucose. It's straight carbs, right? So if we had a drink of carbs or we ate pure carbs with no major fiber in them, right? Not like a sweet potato. So if we ate a sweet potato, we might stay full for about an hour to an hour and a half, maybe. Because again, the sweet potato is just carbs, but it does have fiber. Although it doesn't have fat and protein in it, it's not going to keep us full for very long. When your insulin gets low, hence you just ate carbs and they get used very fast, your body will signal hunger again, right? So if we actually combine fat, carbs, protein, and fiber at most of our meals, we are going to stay fuller and more satiated for longer, and we're going to combat those big, huge plateaus and those big spikes that we have during our daytime with our energy levels. The more you eat earlier in the day, the better energy you're going to have earlier in the day. So if you're finding that you're kind of crapping out around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's pretty normal, you guys. Our body is starting to wind down based on its circadian biology because the sun is setting earlier now, right? So don't try to overextend by drinking caffeine or, making yourself stay up by doing energy drinks or any of those things, because then what you're doing is you're kind of stifling and putting a blunt force into that circadian biology cycle. What I think you should do is come out really hard in the morning, get most of the things that are very taxing mentally done and physically done. And if you're doing your workout a little later in the day, maybe don't drive caffeine into the system, but do some L-arginine or a little L-carnitine and L-arginine, or a little bit of green tea with L-arginine so that you don't have so much caffeine. Carbs alone without a sufficient fat source or protein, or one or the other, but not both, usually will prompt hunger. Carbs are the hunger machines, but they are such an important macro. A lot of people demonize carbs. I actually personally, and from a professional standpoint and also from an educated standpoint, would argue with anyone that you don't need carbs. Now, again, physiologically, the body doesn't need carbs to function, but I firmly believe that carbs would not be on this earth if we didn't need them for brain cognition, and we do. If we didn't need them for hormone health, and we do. And with all the excitotoxins and different pollutants that we have in our environment right now, those can already suppress our hormone function, right? Not to mention all the yo-yo dieting and restricting and overworking and stress and all these oxidative things that we put on ourselves, and our body actually takes that on. We're pretty good at managing stress in our brain, right? Sometimes. But our body still feels it. Our physiology still takes it on. Our brain still has to process all of these different things. So when we've got these wires crossed, the only saving grace that you have is personally recognizing that some of these issues are issues that you deal with, and then thinking to yourself, you know what, right now I'm working on my nutrition. In January, I'm going to work on getting my sleep back in order because I can see that I'm not on my circadian cycle, and it's really affecting my brain and my energy level throughout the day. That is probably one of the more impactful things, sleep, than anything. Hunger can definitely come as well from overeating certain days, which we are going to probably see a little bit of in December. I'm also going to be giving some elective diet breaks and a little bit more food to you guys. When I increase food, a lot of times what you'll see 2 or 3 days later is obviously your scale jumps up just a little, but then it comes back down, and all of you know that now. If you're adherent to your numbers, that correction period is usually at most 7 to 10 days, which is beautiful. That you can add food, adhere to your protocol, and actually lose body fat doing so. Isn't that remarkable? But in that, what you're going to see is that, let's say you get a little carried away for a couple days in a row and you eat, let's say 15, 20 additional grams of carbs. You don't really see that on the scale for longer than a day or two. But when you overeat on fat, the next day you're hungry because you gave your body more food, and your calorie deficit was smaller, right? Well, the next day it's going to ask for that again. So what you do today will impact you tomorrow, and sometimes the next day, not so much in the way of hunger, but pretty much in the way of homeostatic balance, right? So anytime we have alcohol, that'll affect us for 2 or 3 days. Physiologically, it affects us for 2 or 3 days. Hormonally, it will affect us for two or three days, right? So Why do you feel like you're going to snack your face off after drinking alcohol? Well, it's because you did not eat a meal with protein, fat, and fiber beforehand. So what happened is you had the alcohol, your body is working to try to process it to get rid of it because it's a toxin, and your body will get rid of that before it does any other physiological function. So keep that in mind. The days where you drink, your metabolism will not work the same. The days where you drink, you may not have digestion be the same. The days where you drink, your hydration will be off. That's just a couple things that are, no-brainers. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't drink occasionally and enjoy a drink. And you shouldn't feel guilty about that. I just want you guys to know what you're going into so you can know what to expect so that you can recover strong the next day. So what I would say is this: if you have alcohol one day and then you don't have it the next day, your hormones haven't really had a chance to actually repair themselves or recover from the alcohol yet. And then if you're drinking every other day, you're basically just kind of compounding that effect, if you will. So what I would recommend is, if let's say you're going to go to a party on Friday and Saturday during the holidays, I would not drink all week, and then have your drinks and set that reasonable goal with yourself of 1 or 2 drinks. Most of you don't need 3 drinks to get buzzed anymore. Most of you are eating so healthy 75% of the time that you don't need 3 or 4 drinks anymore to get buzzed. A lot of you have told me that, which is really cool. The other thing is you guys are actually now eating where you're balancing your blood sugar. So when you don't eat or you drink after you've had a smaller meal, some of you are getting drunk very fast. I would prefer you actually have a meal before you drink with fats, protein, and fiber, and you do it the correct way. That way the rebound the next day is not going to be bad. You will see that if you do it my way, your hangover is not as bad the next day, and you won't have that kind of just, oh, I feel like crap and I'm going to train like crap type feeling anymore, especially if you do like a wheatgrass or greens powder or amazing grass powder the next morning, first thing when you wake up. Again, we get those micronutrients back in the system because, again, we're in flu season right now too. And every time you drink, it's the most inflammatory thing that you can pretty much put in your body that we ingest, right, is alcohol. So when you drink alcohol, lo and behold, a lot of people tell me this too. They're like, well, I had like 5 drinks of alcohol last week. And guess what, coach? I'm like, you're sick. Yeah, I've got a cold. I'm like, big shocker. It suppresses your immune system. So as long as you guys are aware of this and you know how to take these risks and you know how to kind of recover from these things, I want you to fully be aware that we are going to over consume some of the things that you've labeled bad in the past. They are not bad. Anything in moderation isn't going to kill you on the spot, right? A Twinkie is not going to kill you on the spot, although I would argue that Twinkies are not a very good choice on a regular basis. Alcohol is not going to kill you on the spot, although I would argue that alcohol does have its negatives and its positives for some people. For me, I don't like putting anything in my body that makes me feel mind altered. So the best thing that I can do to calm down from a day and also to deal with my crazy family when they're crazy is to take some of the GABA. And a lot of you have found that the GABA is working very well for you for sleep. And some of you are finding that GABA and 5-HTP are working excellently for you during the daytime for depression and anxiety. I'm super stoked about that because what's nice about 5-HTP is you can take it earlier in the day and it'll kind of put a little bit of a roadblock up as far as the anxiety that you will have maybe when you come home or when the kids come home. A lot of us are actually back to teaching homeschool. I'm so sorry for you guys. I do not know what that is like. I am trying so hard to give you guys maybe some coping skills and mechanisms that you can use to keep your kids in check. And a lot of you have really great kids, but it weighs on you as a mom or a dad. That is a lot of stress. You're now doing the job of 3 people, some of you. Some of you are doing the job of some of the jobs of your husband or wife. You're doing your job as a husband or wife, a parent, and now you're a school teacher and you have a job on top of it. Or you're a stay-at-home mom, which is a job on top of a job, right? So just know that if you fall off the rocker and you have a bad day, You're not alone. There are a lot of other people out there that have those same bad days. There are a lot of other people out there that decide to make emotional choices with their food. And the more and more you recognize that you're making those choices with your food, the more you can learn how to overcome those. So don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. Don't beat yourself up. Simply come to the altar. Come to the altar. Your macro mom's arms are open wide. And I want to help you with those instances. And some of you have already reached out to me this week just to let me know what your plan of reroute is going to be, and that you're going to be journaling how you felt beforehand, the emotions that you had. Maybe on the way home, you were just like, I'm so pissed off. My husband doesn't do anything around the house. I need to talk to him about that, but I don't want to. You guys have a lot of things circulating in your head. And sometimes it's very hard to quiet those things down. And for some of you, it's, gosh darn it, I took on all this burden. And I'm speaking to the men here on this one. I took on all this burden. I took on the financial burden. But I need to tell my wife that I'm really stressed out. But I don't want to tell her because I don't want to disappoint her. Men, if you are authentic with your wives and you deliver things like a loving gift instead of a gut punch, most wives are going to work with you. And the wives in my group are pretty darn awesome. So if your wife is in my group and you need to tell her something because it's just not working, make sure that you package up what you're going to say and deliver it as a gift. When you're doing that, you guys, and I'm speaking to all of you, including myself, make sure that you're not delivering feedback to people after you have had a stressful day, because we all know how things can come out when we've had a stressful day. Sometimes they don't come out right, do they? I find that when you talk about things maybe on the weekend, earlier in the day, say 10 o'clock or 11 in the morning, maybe 12 to 2 p.m., before things get hectic, nighttime is usually not the best time to talk about these pressing issues with your family members. And that brings up my last item of business, which is when family members come into town and they don't agree with the way that you're eating and the way that you look, and they have no rational reason for it, guess whose problem that is? I'm waiting. It's their problem. It is not your problem, and you don't have to accommodate their feelings. What you need to accommodate and make sure that you stay accountable for is your feelings, your emotion, and the way that you handle obstacles, because we all know we can jump obstacles like a gazelle, or we can run into them like a Mack truck, right? And that can be very, very messy. So I really wanted to come on today and just speak from the heart to tell you guys, I want you to fully enjoy your holiday season, but I want you to make good choices. And I want you to not overcompensate by going to the gym and restricting your food 2 or 3 days before Saturday because it's a big party and you know you're going to YOLO. Do not do that. You are now confirming that entire week it is okay for you to restrict and have unhealthy behavior with your food to go YOLO on Saturday. You will not do it. If you do not restrict and you do not eat too clean during the week, you will not YOLO at the party. Why? You already can have these things anyway, any given day, can't you? So that's the best way to look at this from a perspective mindset, so that you can work on in 2021 improving your relationship with food, your relationship with the way that you talk about yourself in the mirror. What you see and what you say is what your brain knows, and it's where your body stays, okay? So what you say to yourself when you look in the mirror every day about how much you hate your wrinkles, how much you hate this roll of fat here, your body will remain that way, because you are confirming that, you are telling yourself that every single day, and that's the way it will remain. Instead, I want you to work on changing what you say to yourself in 2021. I want you to look at yourself and say, you know what, I really love my eyes. And I'm just going to tell you what I said to myself this morning. I'm like, gosh, I love my brows. My brows are my favorite thing. I also love that I can curl my hair and it stays curled for 4 days in a row. I've got good hair. You know what? I've got improvements that I can make in certain areas, and I know that, and so does God, and I'm going to work on those areas, and I'm going to keep moving forward, because you know what? The more I beat myself down about every little imperfection that I have, the less likely I am to actually see improvements in those areas. Rather, I will say this, psychologically, what we know about negative talk, negative self-talk, is that over time, that problem usually tends to get worse and worse and worse, doesn't it? So with that, I'm going to leave you guys. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to get back to work here. I'll be in the boxer tonight. Thank you to Joanna, who took such great care of us last night. I had a nice birthday workout. Thank you so much for everybody who turned in your spreadsheets yesterday. This last week, we got all of the spreadsheets except 5. That is pretty amazing. So if we can shoot for that, even if it's every 7 to 10 days, you guys, that's pretty darn good during the holiday season. Accountability is king. If you know you have to be accountable for tracking and sending your data, you're probably going to be less likely to make mistakes because you know in the long run, these are not going to get you further ahead. They're going to actually keep you from your goal. Take care.